Hey there, hi there, ho there. I'm your host, Jessamyn Reichmann. If you're new here, welcome. I have a spunky way of introducing myself, as that is, my name Jessamyn rhymes with specimen, but with a J. I am a budding sociologist who is radically in love with people. And this love has led me on a quest to not only understand the science behind our social lives, but also to explore how that knowledge can help stabilize our social interactions. Now, today's episode is another principle in a pod. While peas might serve as a substance of pods, I thought principles could serve as a substance of this podcast. Get it? Podcast. Anywho, while science is important, it's crucial that we remain sensible in how we both consume and steward information. The reason why I chose honor is because it's a theme that I'm relearning in this season of life. Historically, I understood honor in a traditional sense, such as you honor your parents or you hold a person in high respect. And sometimes that means even biting your tongue. However, I believe that honor has much more to offer, and I want to spend this episode exploring it through both a social and an active lens. So, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Since this platform uses science to stabilize our conversations, we're going to slide over to our sister in social science, psychology, to hear her definition of honor. In an article written for Psychology Today, Dr. Po Chi Wu describes honor as an abstract concept that encompasses both personal, individual values, and norms of social interaction. He goes on to say that honor is a measure of the quality of a person, including the personal ethics such as honesty, compassion, valor, and chivalry. To Wu's point, honor is indeed an abstract concept. It's the perfect gumbo pot of personal values and beliefs that influence our social interactions. Now, these interactions can vary depending on a person's culture, identity, and even their geographical location. However, instead of just unpacking how honor presents itself in various ways, I want to view honor as an act, and more specifically, as an act of giving value, either to the space that you occupy, in a conversation that you have with a friend, perhaps an intimate relationship that you have with your parents. So let's start at the top. How does honor present itself in a social environment? Have you ever had a night out on the town and maybe someone in the friend group has had a little too much to drink? Now, if you've been that friend, you're not alone. In those moments, typically that person is offered water, a five-star meal from the bar, and an extra set of eyes on them at all times. While this might seem like a simple social act, it's actually one rooted in honor. Why? Because despite your friend being a wee bit intoxicated and the moral decision making slightly going out the window, there is still a standard of presentation and care the other friends are giving. Another place where honor can be found as an act of giving value is in a conversation. Typically, when I speak with individuals in creative spaces, I love to engage from a strength based narrative. This shouldn't be conflated with toxic positivity, but rather I love to identify a person's strength and encourage that as a part of how they speak. Also, if we have a personal relationship, I will be more straightforward and correct any self deprecating words. Because there's a difference between being honest with yourself and simply being cruel to yourself. Now, speaking of placing value in conversation, the final example of how honor can be seen as an act of giving value is in relationships. Now, if I can be completely honest, I struggle with this area a bit. If you go back to Dr. Wu's definition of honor and the part where he describes quote unquote norms of social interaction, there can be a great deal of conflict over what actions are deemed honorable and what actions are not. For example, there have been moments with my parents where we flat out disagree on how to approach a topic or a task. Is it an honorable thing to accept their way, or is it appropriate to voice my own opinion? Because it's easy to honor someone's decision when you agree, but it's a lot harder to define what honor looks like in a relationship, especially during moments of conflict. So the conclusion that I came to was that honor is not blind loyalty. Instead, it's about placing value on myself by coming from a value based perspective and by also placing value on another person. For example, there are certain conversations that I don't partake in anymore. If it's about gossip or belittling another person or simply has nothing to do with me, instead of just walking away, I'll directly shift the conversation and we can talk about something new, something uplifting, something edifying, something good, something truthful, something honorable, right? Let's put some value on the words that we share with each other and about one another. Or another example is choosing, again, to respond different. So if someone fails or they're embarrassed, I will be fast to reassure, not to mock, and really just how can I be generous in this moment and in this time. The final example actually is not an example. It's rather a quote from Dr. Darius Daniels. And if you couldn't tell by this episode, I adore this man as a theologian. But anywho, he once said, you can't honor a person whose actions dishonor you. So if I say yes to something that is going to pull away from who I am at my core, that's gonna call me out of character, that's gonna compromise my integrity, then it is honorable for me to say no. And it is honorable for me to walk away. And it is honorable for me to do things differently. And so with that shift in perspective, I want to bring us back to the main point, which honor should be viewed as an act of giving value, whether it's in a social environment, a conversation, or with a loved one. And I would argue that honor is the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and one another. As a cherry on top of this episode, here is a final quote and a question. Leonardo da Vinci once said, "Who sows virtue reaps honor," which suggests that honor is a byproduct of an individual investing value, either into themselves or into another person. Which now leads to my final question, which is more on the rhetorical side. But can you imagine a world where we allow honor to become the new currency for generosity? In a time where it's easy to focus on the negative, can we leverage the truth to raise the standard in our relationships, cities, and even our country? And on that note, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as to leave a review. And until next time, have a powerful day.